Welcome to another episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's your favorite baby daddy, AJ. And today's guest, we have Mandrake Miller, the founder of the Impact Collective. The focus is leadership and service and creating meaningful impact in people's lives. Also serves as the vice president at Emmanuel University, but most importantly, he's a husband and a father. And you know, all we're here for is about fatherhood. So, of course, we had to have you on the show. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Glad to be here, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, we're not even going to hesitate. We're going to start you off the same way we start everybody else off. What does it mean to you to be a father?
Man, it means everything, man. Being a father, man, really changed my life, man. To me, it means responsibility, like a deeper level of responsibility for more than somebody other than myself, you know? It's one thing to be married and have a wife and have responsibilities there. It's another thing to be responsible for a child, right? You know, and so for me, it's been crazy because when I think about it as a millennial, being raised by parents that were baby boomer generation. They raised us a certain way, man, and it kind of allowed me to be able to see as a child, not understanding parenthood, but now as an adult, understanding parenthood more in terms of what my parents raised me. So it's definitely beneficial, man, to be raised in the way that I was and be able to pour back into my daughter in that way.
Is fatherhood something that you always wanted?
Man, that's a good question. I'm going to say absolutely, absolutely. I was fortunate, man, to be able to have a great father, man. And as a child, I didn't understand. Like me and my dad, we bumped heads a lot, or I bumped heads with him. But as I got older, I understood, like, you understand now what he was trying to do. So for me, it was like being able to have that family environment. Being a father was something that I, as far as I can think back, I know definitely as an adult, something that I always wanted for sure.
So would you say your fatherhood style was more than a father?
You saying is my fatherhood style like my father's fatherhood style?
Your parenting style now, would you say the biggest impact on that was?
I would say I'm gonna say my father. I think that for me, I wouldn't say that I want to do everything on how he did it. I definitely do some things differently, but I think the base and the core of like what was instilled inside of me are things that I take on my journey. Like for an example, like my father was in the military, so I was fortunate to be able to like travel the world and they call it military brat or whatever. And so I got a lot of, exposure and experiences at a young age. But in addition to that, him being in the military, he was like really, really strict. Like, so for me, I didn't want to take the idea of being strict, but I did want to take the idea of leadership, in terms of understanding what leadership looks like, as a father and being able to instill those things, upon my daughter. But I think when you look at this generation of I think we're in Generation Z now. We're Zers now, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the way that they think is way different from how we thought when we were coming up. So I think having some tough love moments are important, but I think those tough love moments look a lot different from my tough love moments, you know? I just know that the tough love moments are needed. And so just being intentional about what that looks like for this generation is something that I try to instill for my daughter.
Yeah, I mean, you're in tune with this generation. You're at a university. So what differences do you see now in this generation that you seen a little different from previous generations?
Man, that's a great question, man. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this generation, if I could just be clear and just kind of straightforward, this generation is a soft generation, man. I think when we came through, times where we were raised in a much tougher age, I would say that, or generation. And so for me, when I look at the college students now, and I work with them every day, but it's like I think they've been given so much, one. But I think also, two, I think there's so many things that play a role in how they think, like social media. Like they have a means to things that we didn't have when we came up, simply because times have changed in the economy or what have you. So I think for me, it's really important to be able to allow them to still have those things. But I think from a disciplinary standpoint, we have to use those things to work, around disciplinary as well. Like maybe like for us, we didn't have phones to be taken away, because when I came through, I didn't have a phone. In the early, late 90s, phones weren't like that at that time. So I didn't have a phone, so in terms of, something that was happening to me, I can't do those things now. You know what I mean? Because the times are different. And so now I could take technology. I could take technology away. And taking technology away for a child in this generation is like the worst thing you could do. You know what I mean? So dealing with college students, dealing with K through 12, I worked in both areas. Those are the things that I see that really hurt the most. And it's kind of, I mean, like to me, it's kind of weird, but understanding the generation, you find things to make it stick where it hurts for them.
So I have a question to that generation getting soft. Don't you think every generation gets softer though? Because I am pretty sure that the generation before us would say the same thing, right? And even back before then, like, we got men working on computers, but back in the day, it'd probably be like, well, why are you even touching this? You need to put your hands on some construction or something. You know what I mean? Like, we use some
Man, let me
kids, so
tell you.
but they get up a little soft.
Absolutely. You know what? I don't disagree with that. I mean, reality is this. When you think back to, not take it back too far, but I mean, take it back. Let's just take it back to slavery for a second. Take it back to slavery for just a moment and think about how, yeah, think about how back then, and thinking of my grandparents and my great grandparents, they were farmers. They worked in the field, so when I came home during the summer times when my dad was, I would come home and spend time with my grandparents and I would work in the field with them. And to me, that was like the worst thing. I appreciate it now, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about working in the fields. I'm talking about with the pigs and the cows and going to the chicken coop and getting the eggs, all those things. I'm talking about working on my grandfather's truck. I'm talking about deer hunting and being out, just all the things. But those were things that were done so they could live. Like my grandparents didn't go to the store. They had all their food was from the farm. And that's hard work. You see what I'm saying? So when I think about that generation and now, I think that I have a more of appreciation for the things that they went through. And the reality of it is it was for us, and so there
Yeah.
were so many things that I've learned from the generations prior to us that give me an appreciation now. So I do agree that previous generations were much tougher. Much
Yeah.
tougher than where we are now. And I think it gets softer and softer. But I believe this though. I believe as a father, I think it's important for me to carry those things into the way that I raise my daughter today. Maybe it's not at that level, but I want her to understand the work that
Yeah.
my parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents that I was able to see in my life, my great grandparents, the work that they did. And so she can understand like, hey, nothing's going to be given to you. You got to work for everything that you got because there were people that came before you that set the stage for you. And so I think as a father, I want to be able to tell those stories. I always take my daughter spends time with her grandma, with her great great grandmother, and so those things are important to hear those stories and hear the things that they went through, so she can have a deeper understanding of where she comes from and what was done for her to be able to have the life that she's able to have today.
So one thing you talked about, you said setting the stage, and I want to focus on that part because you're an educator, right? So that sets a certain standard and a certain stage, you can say, for your child. So growing up, was that a big role for you that you wanted to play the role of the educator?
You know
As
what?
far as like, oh, there's two parents. There's always two parents. Usually there's one that's plays it more than the other.
Mhm.
And so when it came to raising your daughter, how was that for you?
That's a great question, man. So for me, my dad was in the military. And he was in the military, but he actually went to college as well. My mother went to college. She went to Clark Atlanta in Atlanta, and so both of my parents went to college. But for me, it was like I was kind of into sports. I was into the sports world. And I wanted to go do all. So for me, my father always talked about education. I was like, we'll see. Maybe that's what I want to do. But my story is a little bit different. See, I went to college, played college basketball for a short period of time, dropped out of school, went in the military. Went in the military, went over to Iraq, stayed there for some time, came back, went back to school and got finished, and then got some more degrees. And so, but for me, it was like my parents kind of instilled in me, not necessarily education, but the importance of being able to work with people. Like my
Yeah.
parents must had a heart for people. My dad was a pastor, or still is a pastor. And so I was able to see in my parents like how they loved on people. And so for me, that's kind of how I got in education because I like, you know what? I like working with people. You know what I mean? And so started in the K through 12, kids drove me crazy, and I'm moving to higher education, and I loved it. But the joy was that in the example of my parents, I was able to take those things, those skills of seeing them work with people over the years, seeing them do things for families. Seeing my dad was an ROTC instructor for high school when he retired from the military, and seeing all the stuff that he did for young people, I was like, you know what? I think that's what I want to do. So it wasn't necessarily education. That's where I landed. But I always say once I get into a position where I'm not working with young people, it's time for me to do something else.
Well, that's one part. I meant so, but you're in higher education and you've been in education. Did that put pressure on your daughter while she was in school to make sure that she was on her grades, that she had great school? Because, like like you talked about the pastor thing. There's a certain thing when you're a pastor's child, you're expected to be a certain way. Well, if you're a teacher's son or teacher's child, you're expected to be a certain way as well.
Man, that's a great point. I talked to my daughter about, we have these conversations. She's 11 years old now. And so I have conversations with her now about what she wants to do. Like, because, graduation, 18 years old, college, or whatever she decides to do is going to come quickly. So I'm having those conversations with her now about, hey, what you want to do? Right now, she says a bunch of different stuff, you know? And so my conversation with her is like, hey, you got to really begin thinking about that. But what I do as a father is I put my daughter in camps. Now, I put my daughter in camps every summer because I'm different camps. So she can get an idea of, okay, do you like this? Do you like that? She'll go to a STEM camp. She attends entrepreneurship camps, She goes to STEAM camps. She does a bunch of different types of camps. This year she'll be attending an entrepreneurship camp. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's like I want her mind to be able to be in a space at 13, 14 years old where she's like, I'm really locking in on the things that I like. Because what happens is, I believe that what happens as a father, when you begin to put those things in your children, they start thinking about that stuff early. And so by the
Yeah.
time you get to, you're a sophomore, junior, senior in high school, you have a good idea for the things that you like and which are areas that you probably want to go into. So I'm very, very intentional about like having those conversations, but also setting her up to go to the camp and see if it's something that she enjoys.
So with that though, you can only do but so much because we're only one parent, right?
That's it.
So if the other parent is intentional about it, and if not, does that cause any conflict? And we're going to get to that whole dynamic as well.
That's a great question. I think that the important piece is I think that the great part about it is both parents have the intentionality of and the desire for our child to be successful. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying? And so whatever her mother is sharing, the things that her mother shares, I think is great as well because it gives her a comprehensive thought process as it relates to the breadth of things that she could do.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's only helpful, but I think it's good for her to expand her mind and to be able to think through what both sides, what both parents are sharing with her. Ultimately she's going to come to a common ground and decision. And this is the other thing too. As our children get older, their thoughts start as they go from elementary school to middle school to high. Their thoughts just change so many times,
And attitudes and all of it.
attitudes and all of that. And so for me, I want to give my daughter the freedom and I say freedom, but freedom to an extent. I wanted to give my daughter the freedom to be able to process her own thoughts about what she wants to do, but I want to be there to cultivate those thoughts. Not because
And
if my daughter says she wants to do something that's is out of the realm of, like for an example, my daughter said a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to her. She said she wanted to be a singer. I said, well, are you practicing? I said, because if you want to be a singer, then you need to be practicing. I said, if when guys go to the NBA, you can't just say I want to go to the NBA. You don't practice. I said, so are you practicing? And I told my daughter, I said, if you don't practice, you're not going to be a singer.
yeah.
And I know people will say you shouldn't tell your kids that, but my thing is you can do it, but if you're not going to work at it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be able to
Not
do it.
gonna-
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
not going to just
And
happen.
so when you set these standards and everything, but how hard is it to do that when you're not there on a day-to-day basis?
It's challenging, man. It's challenging. I think a part of it is too is like you have to have like me and my daughter, we talk every day. Even if it's 5 minutes or less, we talk every day. And so we have basically a framework for how we work. Every day, If I hadn't talked to her during the day, when it's time to go to bed, we do our devotional before we go to bed. And I think the important part of it is the cultivation of relationship, you know, because being apart, um, there's a lot of challenges I can say that can present themselves, not only for myself as a father, but also for her as a daughter. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, it's important to be able to ensure that there's no gaps in terms of our relationship being tampered with, for lack of a better term. Like our relationship it has to stay, it has to stay whole, which is good because, her mother is great. Her mother is great. We have a great relationship. And so I think that makes, we think about the co-parenting thing. I think that it makes for just a healthy and whole child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's been good. But I think for me, it has to be intentionality, man, around having those conversations. I typically have her for the entire summer, which is good because those are the times when she does spend times at camps and those things, and those are times I can really instill just a lot of
Mhm.
things in her during that time when I have her for that long period of time. But yeah, I mean, our relationship is great, man, and so it's all about cultivation.
So, yeah, how did you cultivate that initially, that co-parenting relationship? Because that's not easy, and that's not. Oh, we don't hear about it being easy. It takes work.
It takes
Can be.
work, brother. Brother, it takes
It
work.
work.
It takes
It
work.
takes a lot of work. So
Yeah.
how was that initial transition? How did it get to this point?
The interesting part, man, is that my daughter has never seen her biological mother and father in a relationship. She's never seen that before. So all she knows is that her father is here, her mother is here. She's never seen like us being together in a relationship. So that's something that she never experienced. And so for us, initially it was a challenge. But the great part about two mature adults is that you come together for the betterment of the child. And so we were able to do that. We were able to do that early on. Early on, when our daughter was very, very young, before she even turned 1 years old. We were able to come together and be able to say, hey, whatever differences or odds we may have had, like we got a whole child here right now. And so the most important thing is that we have to be on the best terms so that we could be the best for our daughter. And we have a great relationship. I mean, I couldn't look, we couldn't have a better relationship right now. So I'm happy about that, and it's been great. It's been great. I mean, it took some time, but I think the thing that made the change was just the maturity of the two of us.
So I do have another part about that question and the change because that maturity had to also come when you got married. Because so how was that? We can all talk about, hey, this is it. We're separated. This is fine. This is how we're gonna do
Yeah.
until you're confronted with that in your face,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like, hey, uh, this woman's gonna be taking your daughter to get her hair done when you're not here in the summer. This woman's gonna be getting her nails done. Like, how was building that, and how important was like that type of relationship in the situation?
Yeah. I would say it like this. I'm all about peace, man. I'm all about peace and all about finding ways to connect so that we can have peace. The great
Yeah.
part about it is we never had any issues. Never had any issues that related to my daughter, my wife, my ex-wife. Never had any issues. You know what I mean? And so I'm gonna take credit for that though. I'm gonna take all the credit for that. I'm gonna take all the credit. I'm gonna take I'm gonna take all the credit. Yeah. I'm gonna take the credit for that though, because I think that, and I think so that's one part of it. I'm gonna take the credit for that, but I think that we had to have mature people. Everybody had to be mature about the situation as well. So I give us some credit too. But me being the centerpiece of all of this, I
How
was
did
just
you
like,
how did you do that?
well for
Because there's
me,
a lot out
well for
here
me,
that
yeah, for
yeah.
me, it's like this is what it's gonna be. Like this what we're gonna do. And so it was me, but I think it was a lot of prayer too. Because
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna go spiritual here because I do think it was a lot of prayer. I know I prayed a lot during that time and still do. But there are no issues. There haven't been any issues between anybody. And I think that I know, but this is what I do know. I think had I not navigated in the way that I did, and how I navigated it was what I'm telling you is like, hey, we're gonna have peace. I don't want any challenges. We have a little girl here who is the focus. And the thing about it is it's great because nobody did anything wrong to anybody. You know what I'm saying? No, it wasn't like somebody, it wasn't any of that. So the thing is like there wasn't a reason for there to be any animosity towards anybody in the situation. And so I think that that helped a lot too. I think when you going through these, you know, divorce is never easy. It's always painful. It's always
Very.
painful. It's always hard, especially when you have a child that's involved. You know what I mean? And so that makes it even harder. So I think outside of the pain of going through that process, I think when for me, getting married a few years later, I think at that time we were at a space where, you know what? It's water under the bridge. It didn't work out. But I think the main thing that I was focused on, and which I share with everyone that was involved, our focus has to be on our child. And you focus on the child and leave all the other thoughts and feelings out of the way, I think you're good. And so that's what I was able to do, and it worked out very well. I know it didn't work out a lot that way with a lot of people, but for me, it was a blessing. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't gonna have it
You
no
know,
other way though.
because the part where you said like, yeah, I mean, there was no reason for any animosity. I'm like, well, it don't gotta be. Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, somebody that's been doing this a long time, that's been lived a little bit. You ain't really gotta be a reason for animosity
no,
for there to
no.
animosity.
But this is the
That's
thing though.
good.
But this is the thing. The thing is that even in the midst of that, even in the midst of it not being animosity, it could have been.
Yeah, I know, of course. Yeah, of course. Of course.
It could have been. But I
Always
think
part is
that,
they're nice and all the time.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that for me, it was like I was very, very intentional about the way that I communicated. Very, very
yeah,
intentional about the way that I moved throughout the process because I knew that when my wife was able to go and pick up her stepdaughter and my ex, and I wasn't going to be there, and my ex-wife, I knew everything was good because that's something that normally a lot of times can't happen with some relationships. That didn't happen. But my wife is able to go, and if I can't make it, I got something going on. I could tell my wife, say, hey, can you go pick up Madison for us? She'll go pick up Madison, and everything is good. Everybody is mature and all the things, so there's no challenge there.
yeah. So I do have. I'm gonna get you out of here with like about two more questions
You're
for you.
good.
So when it comes to, especially that aspect, when it came to that time frame in which before your wife came and you were divorced and you were sitting in that moment when it was just you as a single father. In those moments, were you intentionally looking to become and start a family over again, or were you okay? Just let me sit in here with me and my daughter and focus on me and my daughter.
That's a great question, man. I think for me, I understood that during that time, that was probably one of the hardest times of my life going through that process. So for me, I was more so in a place of like healing. Like more in a place of like, some people have this model where you to get over one, you go to another.
Yeah,
And for me, that wasn't really my thing. It was more so like I got to get through this. Going through that process, it was like times where I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I didn't want. I mean, just going through like a depression or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it was such a tough season of my life. You don't get married to get divorced. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So when that happens, it's like okay, wow, it's like it's like you're starting over. So for me, I was just in a place of like healing and really just trying to get through it. Now I knew that eventually, at some point, I would want to do it again because I'm a family man. I desire to have family. I desire to be married. I desire to have a wife. You know what I mean? I think that's very, very important for a man to have, especially for a man like myself. In that moment of the transition, though, I wasn't actively looking for anyone. Just trying to get through the pain of what I was going through at that time. And really, as a first time father, really just like embracing fatherhood and all the things and learning what that looked like. Because although I had a good father myself, I've never been a father. I had never been a father. So just learning
Yeah.
what that looked like, it's definitely a learning process. And so I was more intentional about that at that time.
So I do have a question about that too, because for me, I felt like, and I talked about this before, I felt like I became almost a better father in the moments in which I had to be by myself. And
Absolutely.
and that, but I feel like I did that at the sacrifice of, my relationships and my kids or whatever, but it made me become a better father. What things did you start to do differently, or did you notice you did differently when you got into the relationship that you might not have been doing before when it came to your parenting style? Or was everything just the same? Because, like for me, for example, I know like the education thing, right?
Mhm.
I know like their mom be reading the books at night every night. Right. Now that I'm by myself, am I going to be doing that? Maybe not.
Right.
But now that I have to, it's like I have to. I have to because no one else here to pick up that load. So I know now, even if I get someone else, this is what I'm going to have to be doing now. Is there
Absolutely.
anything that you learned about yourself in those moments that you carried
Yeah.
over?
Man, that's a great question, man. I remember in the moments when I was by myself and it was just me and my daughter, and it was like I would YouTube like how to do her hair, like how you do the hair, and got pretty good at it too. You know, I would YouTube how to do her hair, and just things that little girls would need because I was very intentional. Like I wanted to, I wouldn't say I wanted to prove to anybody, but I'm like, if my daughter's gonna be with me, I'm here, and in this moment, I'm basically a single father in that moment. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So, or in those moments, so it's like I had to figure out everything on my own. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was it was challenging, but there was a lot of joy in it too because as my daughter got older, the things that I was doing then, I could still do her hair. To this day, I can still do her hair if I need to. You know what I mean? I don't have to do it anymore. So as time went on, and I eventually got married again, you begin to see the things that I was doing as a father that most fathers probably wouldn't do. My wife was able to step in and do a lot of the beauty stuff. Even though I would do it, you know, I don't have to do those things as much now because I have
yeah,
someone that's there to do it, that wants to do it, that wants to be that person.
yeah.
And I think it also helps to cultivate their relationship too when they're able to spend that time together.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for me, I learned a lot. Just the hair is just one of the things. I mean, my daughter's first words was charger, charger. Charger, charger was her first words, which tells you the age that the generation that we're coming up in. And so
Brought that
basically what
thing
I'm
up.
saying is as a toddler, I think she said her first was like 8 or 9 months. And so even at that time, from an educational standpoint, I was buying the educational stuff for her to look at, for her to hear and listen. And one day her educational the little game or whatever I had for her, it was electronic and the battery went dead and she said, charger, charger. She knew that at 8 months old that she needed to charge so that she can
Yeah,
get back to doing what she was doing. So
it was happening.
yeah. And so from an educational standpoint, that started before that started, literally when, probably in the early months that started because I wanted to be able to, I just believe that, a child's brain begins to work in the early stages. And so just kind of feeding her those things early is something that I've always done. But I think it's allowed me to be able to, you talked about a standard earlier. I think for me, there's just a standard that my daughter like that we have. Like, there's a standard that she's gonna do well in school. There's a standard that she's gonna be at. There's a standard she's gonna treat people right. There's a standard that she's gonna like. There's a way that you're gonna do things, and it's
Yeah,
a standard. You know what I mean? And I think that's um just what was instilled in me and my siblings that this is how you're gonna do it, and this is what we expect. I've always had the intentionality of instilling all those things in her, whether it's spiritually, whether it's educationally, whether it's the way that you treat people, the way that you show up, all those things and when I say show up, the way you show up in terms of your look, your appearance, kindness, being prepared when you got to do stuff, like it's a standard. And then that started when she was a baby.
yeah. That's good. But one thing you said, it kind of I never thought about this like this before, but it's funny. You said that the hair thing, but your wife wanted to do it. But that was probably something that you like wanted her to do now, right? You wanted to let that go.
Absolutely.
I think back to when especially being a single father for a while, certain things I don't really want to let go of.
Okay.
So, for example, my daughter, my oldest daughter, since she was 3 years old, she only gets her nails done with me. She don't get it done with her mom. She didn't get it done with my youngest daughter's mother. The youngest one wanted, the mom wanted to do it. And I was like, no. But like I got to the point when that, that's probably a really good moment for them. And my daughter told her own mother no before about doing that. But I probably could have pushed and let that go. Was there anything that any moments where they was like, nah, you're okay. Like this is my daughter. This is mine. She's mine. This is me. Let me go. Which in this moment I realized I should have done that. I should have let that become their thing, and I come in every now and then. But like
Yeah.
I like my nails too much.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great question, man, because I believe we have so many me and my daughter have so many bonding times, like, things we bond like, simple stuff that we bond through, and doing hair was one of them. Like, for me, if I'm being honest, that was probably one thing that I didn't wanna let go. But I
Really?
understood but yeah, when I think about it, but to be honest with you, because it was such a good bonding time for us to talk and just you get used to doing it. So for me, it was like, I think that I wanted that the relationship between my wife and my daughter to be cultivated. So I knew that even though I didn't wanna let it go, there was some things that was one of the things that I probably needed to begin to pass over to her so because that was important for me, for their
Yeah.
relationship to be cultivated and and to find ways like, I enjoyed like, for me, I wasn't like a person that would go and get my feet and stuff done, but when I had my daughter and we were by ourselves, my daughter, I would take her to get her feet and her nails done. That's something that we used to do. Now, she does that more with my wife or we'll go and sometimes we'll go as a family. But those are things that like, hey, I really don't want to let. You know,
Yeah.
as a man and as a father, our daughters bring out the soft side in us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you find yourself doing things that you probably normally wouldn't do, but when it's your daughter, oh yeah, I'll do it. That's my daughter. It's a different type of love, you know what I
Start
mean?
liking it. That's the other part. You start liking it.
Start liking it.
Like, yeah, I want to go to the tea party.
Yeah,
Hey, what's my invite? Like, yeah,
there you go.
like yeah,
There,
that is
there you
it.
go.
So I can say you've been very intentional about everything you've said and the way you've been raising your daughter. So I think I wonder if you've thought about this question. The last question that we get you out of here with is, what do you want your legacy as a father to be?
Man, that's a great question, man. I would say this. When I think about legacy as a father, I want my daughter to know, which I believe that she knows to this day, but I want her to know, like, when I'm gone from here, I want her to be able to say that my father was everything to me. My father wasn't perfect. My father may not have gotten all right, but he was everything to me. Like he did everything he could to make sure that I was good. And I think for me, I want to be able to, which I'm even working on that now. Just when I leave from here, I want to be able to leave stuff for my children, for her. If I have more children for them, but definitely for her now. I want to be able to leave, make her life better, to leave stuff behind so that she won't have to deal with a lot of stuff that I deal with. You know what I mean? Financially, I want her to be in a good place. Spiritually, I want her to be in a good place. And I want her to be able to say that I have these things I'm the way that I am. I'm prepared for life because of the things that my father instilled in me. That's what I want her. That's what I want my legacy to be. I mean, I can go deeper into that, but on the surface, that's what I would say.
That's I mean, listen, my children are everything to me. And if your children say you're everything to them, then that's a perfect legacy to leave. So I appreciate your time.
Man, I appreciate you, man.
Episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. I know you liked what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod.